I'd like briefly, if I may, to pass over to Mr. Todd Rundgren.
A portrait of a crazy man, trying to make a living off an LP's worth of tunes.
I'm Travis Elborough. I am the author of the long player Goodbye, among other things. This book was inspired by some men drinking frighteningly strong lager in a park and their insistence on playing one particular cassette, a cassette of The Fisherman's Blues by the Waterboys, again and again.
So they would play it. Again. And again.
Which then made me think, well, you know, what would it be like if you just had the one LP and then kind of spiralling off into that? I suppose this is sort of a strand with the things I write about that. I mean, the last couple of things, the previous book was about the Routemaster bus, where there's sort of things that are slightly antiquated. And the idea is to then turn back the clock and try and remember what it was like when they knew what that meant and how these things. And they're both sort of icons in their own kind of way, in a broader cultural sense with LPs.
We go back to a warm summer's evening in 1948. It's a June midsummer's day, and a load of kind of grizzled fedora-wearing journalists have been called into Order of Astoria to witness a demonstration of what Columbia Records are calling a revolutionary disc marvel. Disc being spelled with the K. They're clearly going for a sort of, you know, Aleister Crowley occultist sort of angle on that. And the journalists storm in and are greeted by the side of Edward Wallerstein, who's the head of Columbia Records. And on one side of him is a stack of 78s, and on the other side of him is this new LP record.
Most of my things are, you know, they begin with an idea and then they're about research. So quite a lot of time is spent kind of in libraries digging around. In this book's case, it was, you know, the excuse of being able to flip through back issues of NME from the kind of 1960s and 70s, and Melody Maker and Downbeat, and other kind of defunct. Actually, I think Downbeat is still going, isn't it? But, you know, some kind of, you know, high fidelity magazine and stuff from the 1950s. So it's a great chance to just kind of, you know, flip through old magazines under the ground. So you're doing some research.
One of the unforeseen sort of outcomes, in a sense, of the LP was, you know, it's a huge explosion in things like classical music, where people listen very intently because they now have an entire symphony they can listen to. But one of the other elements of it is it unleashes an entire form in kind of utility music, or background music, or wallpaper music. So, reading from the book, I would like to take you now on perhaps, you know, what for some may be an unpleasant journey into
the cascading strings,
the world of the Mantovani. I have something of a pet theory about LPs in charity shops, which is that while they can and do supply reams of fascinating data about the rise and fall of musical trends and formats, the shifts in status as artists as their records slide from ubiquity to obsolescence. If, for example, some peculiar meteor were to strike the Earth, triggering an even more bizarre apocalyptic event that wiped out at a stroke most of the globe's population and every LP ever made, except those stored in charity shops, then future civilizations would be forced to concede that Hawaiian album, Silk on Steel, and Strictly Mantovani were the acme of this lost world's musical achievements.
I knew I wanted to write about sort of popular culture, to a certain extent. Having not really made it as a kind of music journalist or anything else, kind of history and other ways of putting, and also, you know, and film and other forms of art form, I guess. I really liked the sort of proto kind of new journalists, people like Joseph Mitchell, who's a writer for the New Yorker. He had this kind of incredible style of being able to write reportage as if it was fiction, long before kind of people like Tom Wolfe and that were doing it. And I love those kind of books. That kind of, I mean, not saying that's necessarily what I do, but someone like Michael Bracewell or Jeff Dyer or someone who's able to kind of play around with the form, I kind of admire enormously.
Given the huge number of Mantovani LPs in charity shops, and though so much of his music is so astonishingly exceptional, it is unexceptional even in the field of easy listening for being so astonishingly unexceptional. Did anyone ever truly love Mantovani? Millions purchased, listened, liked and enjoyed his records, sure, and then, after a while, gave them away. Thank you very much.